Hi guys, and welcome to another video for Eduqas English Language. In this video we are going to be looking at paper 2, the Chilean Miners paper, which hopefully you've got in front of you ready. Okay, so we'll begin by looking at question 1. We are going to be looking at the miners rescued from the Chilean mine extract. You can see here we have 3 questions as always. We have question A, B and C for question 1. Each one of them is worth 1 mark. So quick reminders for this question. You have to make sure you give exact information. If there are any units required, you have to give the units. If there is a number, obviously that's where the units are going to apply. If it's a date or a time or something like that, you don't have to put it as a full sentence, just a single word will suffice, okay? And just be precise with any answer that you give, okay? So the first one, what was the nickname of the rescue capsule? So I'll help you with this first one. If we just look together at the beginnings of the extract, in front of you, it says miners rescued from Chilean mine. By the way, just as a reminder, you can't use anything from the kind of context box at the top. That's kind of like, that's not allowed. It's just there to explain to you what's going on. But we'll read it anyway. On the 5th of August 2010, in the San Jose mine in Chile, South America, 33 miners were trapped by a rock collapse deep underground. Nearly 70 days later, rescuers began to bring the trapped miners one by one to the surface, ending their long ordeal underground. No one in history had been trapped underground for so long and survived, Jeffrey Brown reports. In a flawless rescue operation, 33 miners who were trapped for more than 2 months deep beneath the Chilean earth were raised one by one through 600 meters of rock. Does that tell us the name of the rescue capsule? No, not yet. They were brought to the surface in a rescue capsule nicknamed Phoenix 2 through a 28-inch wide escape shaft that had taken 2 months to drill. So clearly, here is your first answer for that one. So just helping you out with that first one there, okay? You want to pause the video now and time yourself. All right, these 3 questions all together should take you a maximum of 5 minutes, but the fact that you're only doing 2 means that you should be able to do this in about 3 minutes, although I know many of you will do it quicker than that. So pause the video now and come back for the answers. Okay, assuming that you've unpaused and done those, your answers are here. So the first one, Phoenix 2, as I've just highlighted. Second one, by attaching a message to the drill. You have to get the idea of attaching the message. You can't just say, sending a message or anything like that. You have to physically attach it to the drill. And the third one, Copiapo, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it, hospital. Okay, you have to make sure that you put the word hospital. You cannot just put this word on its own because that's the name of the town. Okay. So now let's go on to question 2. So again, this will also be on the same text on the miners rescued from the Chilean mine. Just going to delete those. And this second question is one of those common evidence questions. So it says, how does Jeffrey Brown try to show how hard it was for the trapped miners during their long ordeal underground? So you want to take your pen and circle the idea of how hard it was. So in these questions, you're often looking for positives or negatives. Clearly, we are looking for negatives here. Now, if we look at the text, miners rescued from the Chilean mine, as we said before, we cannot use this opening context box at the top here. I'm just going to redo that. So we can scribble that off, but everything else is accessible for this question. So we're looking for anything which shows real negatives about how hard it was to be trapped underground for so long. Now you can probably think of some answers before you even read it. All right, you're going to have 15 minutes on this one, but let's go through the first part together. All right, so they were trapped, obviously, as we just read in that first part, for a long time, for 2 months, through 600 meters. Now that idea of being trapped there for 2 months, okay, it also links to this one down here about spending 69 days because obviously it's the same amount of time roughly. Therefore, that is one of the first things about it being hard, the fact that they were there for a long time. Okay, let's try and find another one as well to go through. So scenes of jubilation erupted every time a miner arrived at the surface of the San Jose mine. As they emerged into the fresh air, some cried, others prayed, and wrapped their arms around their wives and children. Okay, now, because although this isn't a negative, the fact that they're doing it shows that there has been a negative beforehand. So if we highlight something there about the fact that some cried, they prayed, they wrapped their arms around their wives and children, you would say that that's like showing relief and that kind of thing. So if we bring in our model here, and if I just keep that all in the same position, we're going to do a standard kind of comment evidence develop for this. Sorry, not develop, just comment and evidence. And we're going to make sure that we use those bits of evidence that we've just done there. So if I just itch those up. So we're going to do that one about the amount of time first. So firstly, and then we have to put the evidence into our own words, say thoughts and feelings or what is happening. Well, if it's 2 months or 6-9 days, firstly, they were down underground for a long time. Quote, and you can use either one, 2 months deep beneath the Chilean earth. Or you can use the 6-9 days one, it doesn't really matter. So there's our evidence for the first one. And underground for a long time is clearly the comment that shows the understanding of that. So the next one, they cried, they prayed, they hugged their wives and children. So why does that show as hard it was? Because they've got that emotion, that feeling, that relief that they have afterwards. Next, they were extremely relieved when they finally got out. Quote, cried, others prayed and wrapped their arms around wives and children. Do you need all of that quote? No, you could get away with just using part of it. I'm just going to put it all in there for completeness because all of it shows this idea of celebration and relief. And that bit there would be our comment for that one. Okay, so hopefully that's nice and clear for you. You've got 2 answers there. You are trying to find 10 of them. This is a 10-mark question. You've got 15 minutes, so you want to pause the video now and go through as many of these as you possibly can, and then unpause when you're ready for the answers. Okay, assuming you've unpaused and done that by now, here are the answers that you want for that question. So let's go through them. First of all, it begins by saying how the men behave when they were rescued. Cried, praying, hugging their release. That's the one I just did in the model. He tells us how they're trapped for 6-9 days or 2 months is also fine. Both of those you've seen. Next, the physical conditions they managed to cope with. You can talk about the darkness, because clearly they're underground. The confinement in small space, so you're going to use words like trapped and claustrophobic and restricted or can't move or something like that. And the heat or the temperature. Next, the men never knew if anyone thought they might be alive because they were completely cut off from the world. They had to survive on very little food. It talks about, rationing tuna and things, I think. The water they drank was very filthy. The first 2 weeks after they'd gone, they thought any rescue attempt had been abandoned. They thought it had just been left to die. They almost gave up hope and wrote farewell letters in case their bodies were ever discovered. They thought they might have to eat each other. It mentions it as a dark joke in the text. They had breathing difficulties and lost weight. They worked 8-hour shifts clearing debris away from the drilling to try and be, potentially able to get out. They had to exercise regularly to make sure they didn't lose muscle mass and strength. Their tone is factual and unemotional. So these bits here are all about the kind of hows afterwards. The 10 what's you're going to cover are in these ones here. So these bits only count if you're getting 7+ out of 10. So you've got first-hand account, the chronological structure, and also the writer's use of language to talk about the difficulty and the length of time, etc. But these are the main quotes that you want to be looking for. Okay, so if you want to give yourself a score out of 10 that you think you found there, and after that point, we will then carry on with the next one. So we're then going to be going on to the older text. So to read these questions, you have to look in the account, the Penny Review. Okay, so that's the separate article, which is here. I'm just going to zoom that one in ever so slightly, make it a little bit clearer. Okay, and we have some simple 1-mark questions again. So first of all, what caused the coal mine to collapse? Secondly, what detail does the writer give that shows the rescue attempts never slowed or stopped? And lastly, what gave the rescuers hope that the miners were still alive? Okay, the first question, question A, has only got one particular answer for it. Question B has got 3 possible alternatives, and question C has also got 3 possible answers. You just need one of them. I'm not going to give you any help on this one because it's very, very similar to question part 1 that you've already done with A, B, and C for that. So set yourself a strict 5-minute timer at most. If you do it quicker, then great. And pause the video and have a go at writing all of those, please. Very, very short answers required. Okay, assuming you've done that and unpaused, then you will have found something like that. All right, so the roof supports for 2 weeks to support the heavy mass above. When a man began to tire, another one took his place, or the work proceeded day and night, or there was lots of increased activity. Any one of those is correct for part B. And for C, they had a distant tapping of hammers, the rescuers could hear voices, or they heard sounds from within. Okay, so any of those are correct. And then we go on to question 4 or 14. All right. This question is exactly the same as question 5 on paper 1. So this is where you have the statement and you have to say whether you agree with it. And you're expected to agree. So the statement says, in the first 3 paragraphs of the account, so you're only looking first of all at this. Just be very careful with that. I'm just going to mark this one off on here. So you're only looking at these 3. Remember, you're not using the context box at the top. That's only just there for information. The writer gives the impression that the accident was so serious that the trapped miners would not be found alive. So your keyword in that question is serious, the fact that it's going to be negative. All right, so the idea you're looking for is that, maybe that they wouldn't get out. So this is a different account in Victorian times. Different mining disaster, not the same one. This is written over 100 years ago. So the context box tells us, in Victorian times, mining accidents were frequent, often resulting in many deaths. However, this article, which appeared in a magazine called The Penny Review, tells of the successful rescue of 11 miners trapped in a collapsed mine. Okay, so we're looking for things that hint that it wasn't going to be successful, even though it actually was. So this is a 15-minute one. We're looking for 10 possible things to mention, to do 10 comment evidences on, but clearly we need to do the first one together first of all. All right, so at first it says, on a Monday morning, whilst the miners were in the coal mine underneath, a sudden collapse of earth took place owing to the roof supports that were much too weak to support the enormous weight above. Okay, so if I just zoom that one in ever so slightly, we've got it there. A sudden collapse of the earth took place. So that is clearly going to be one of the answers that we're supposed to be doing. Okay, it's so serious because things have collapsed straight away. All right, we'll write that one up in a second. Let's look for one more. Okay, 11 men were at work below and the tunnels were instantly filled with the falling earth and rock. Consequently, all hope of escape was cut off and the men's lights extinguished by the violent blast of air that followed. Okay, so again, how does it show it's so serious it never be found alive? So looking for negatives, it says here, all hope of escape was cut off. Okay, the lights were extinguished as well. They couldn't even see. All right, those are your first 3 possible answers for this one. So if we have a look at just resizing that a little bit, and just gonna move that down so we can see it at the same time. So remember, question 4, you need to put the I think or I feel sometimes that's in there. In this one, we're going to need to do it, at least in the first one, and then maybe for a couple later on. So let's look at that first one, a sudden collapse of earth. How does that show that it's really, really serious? So firstly, if it's sudden, put it into your own words, there was no warning, or firstly, sorry, I think, or I feel, or I agree, there was no warning as the collapse happened very quickly. Or in fact, I'm going to use the word accident, happened very quickly, or disaster, because then I'm not using the keyword from the quote. So sudden collapse of earth took place. So if we colour code those, we've then got the evidence there. We've got there was no warning, so that's our judgment of what's actually happened. And then the accident happened very quickly. So that is the comment where we put the evidence into our own words there. All right. So pause the video now and try and do the next couple yourself. I'll show you them in a second. So you want to write about the all hope of escape was cut off and the men's lights were extinguished. So pause the video and try that yourself. Okay, if you've unpaused and done it, you want to put something like next, and you can put I think or I feel if you want to, but you don't have to because you already used it for one. You just want to do it a few times throughout your answer. So next, it's this idea of, you know, there's no hope because it's all been cut off, but we can't say no hope because it's in the quotation here. So next, they think they will never be found. Quote all. Oops, I need to put this onto a new page actually to make it a little bit clearer. Here we go. Next, all hope of escape was cut off. All right, so that one there would be our evidence, and they think they will never be found would be the comment. So I've not done a blue one with this one. And then if the lights are extinguished, well, why is that a problem? Why is it serious? Because they're not going to be able to see. They're going to be in complete darkness. Okay, and again, I've not used an I think or I feel because that's going to be enough for this one. And that's going to be our comment there. All right, so that would get, if we were marking it, let's just imagine that we're the examiner, they'd be ticking 3 times. They'd be ticking that, they'd be ticking that, and they'd be ticking that. All right, so now you want to work your way through the rest of those 3 paragraphs that I've indicated there. Try and do as many as you can. You would get 15 minutes on this, but I've done 3 of them for you, so you probably want to just spend, like 11 or 12 or something to make it realistic. Pause the video and have a go at it yourself. Okay, if you've done that and unpaused, then your answers are here. Okay, so you can see those first ones there are the 3 that I modeled to you. The next ones, it talks about the collapse news spreading like wildfire. So it's the idea that, people were picking up on it very quickly. Thousands of people rushed to the mine. Their dreadful cries added to the misery. So that's about the suffering and the panic of the relatives. The work stopped immediately and the miners wanted to help. No one knew if they might have survived. It says the fate of the men was unknown. That's the quote that most people use there. Then they tried to dig a new hole or tunnel to get in. That was the only hope of getting them out. That would be difficult because they had to dig through 100 yards of solid coal, so it would be very tough, digging to get there. The attempt to rescue the men continued with increased desperation because they're panicking as more time goes on. Hope of saving them diminished with every day that passed because it's more and more likely that they would die and run out of food and water, etc. And then at the end, there's 1 point available about the language. So the only hope or the solid coal, it's quite kind of emotive, the seriousness that's mentioned here. But the vast majority of the points there are for what is being said, not how, as always. So give yourself a score out of 10 for that one. Okay, let's move that across there. And then we're on to the questions where you look at both texts. All right, so question 5, or 15, whichever you want to call it. This one, no comment evidence, remember. You're looking at both texts, but you're going to write 2 sentences. It's 4 marks, and so you want 2 things from each text, but you're going to write 3 from each text in case one of them is wrong. So using information from both texts, explain briefly in your own words what happened when the news of the mining accidents became known. So that means if the news of it became known, that's after it's happened, not before. That's the mistake that a lot of students make on this question. They forget that they get the timing wrong in this one. Okay, so basically what happened? What did people do? How did they react when the mining accident news became known? So we'll do 1 together and then you guys can do the rest that's there. All right. So in the newspaper article, so we can call it, you must make sure you say, as you'll have seen in previous videos, that you use the writer's name or the title. So we can say in the newspaper article, so the modern text, okay, the government assembled a rescue team, and then you're going to put a second thing, and then you're going to put a third thing like that. Clearly the government doesn't do it all, but those are the 3 things, okay? So that bit there is where I've taken some information from the text. I know it's not a direct quote, but it's just lifting information, and that would get us 1 mark for this response. Okay, so do 2 more for that one on the modern text, where they were dug out by the drill. And then in the old-fashioned text, you can call that one in the Penny Review article. And then you do 3 things like that as well. Okay, so you want to pause your video now and have a go at doing that. Maximum 5 minutes on this because you're literally just writing 2 sentences. Okay, if you've done that and unpaused, your answers are here. So we'll do the newspaper article first, that's one I did. So the government assembled a rescue team, that's the one that I mentioned. Government tried to assemble an emergency squad to get into the mine, but it failed, and the miners' families set up a camp, a tent camp called Camp Hope. In the other text, it spread like wildfire and the alarm was given. Thousands rushed to help and rushed to the spot, and they were miserable, obviously. The work stopped and the workers wanted to help in the rescue attempt, and they decided to dig a hole to save them. Okay, so you want basically 2 from this one and 2 from this one, or 3 from this one and 1 from this one, or 1 from this one and 3 from this one. You have to get at least 1 mark from each text to get more than 1 out of 4. Okay, give yourself a mark out of 4 for that. Then we're going on to the final question. So that is question 6 or 16. It says, both of these texts give an account of a mining rescue, but the bullet points are always the thing that we focus on. Compare what the writers tell us about what happened on the day when the miners were rescued. Okay, so this one was about what happened when the news of the accident became known, so they're still underground at that point. This one is on the day they were rescued. Okay, so you need to find the relevant area of the text for this. Anything that happened before they were rescued is not going to be correct. Okay, so then we're going to do the same thing again. You're going to start off with, in the newspaper article, what happened on the day of the rescue. Well, it mentions things about the president and things like that happen at the end of the article. If you got to that point when you're looking at question 2 and 4, it talks about the president saying "Welcome to life" and talking about how they were free. So we say in the newspaper article, the Chilean president celebrated and said "Welcome to life" when they got out. All right, so that is the first one that you could do. Okay. Now you can use a comment with this one, but some of them are going to be optional. You're not going to need it with every single one. One thing to mention though for definite is you can reuse answers that have cropped up in question 2 and question 4. You're not going to reuse every single answer because they're not all going to be relevant, because some of them are going to be from before they actually got out. But on the day they actually got out, you can reuse things. Okay. So then you want to be saying next and finding 5 or 6 things in the modern article, in the newspaper one, start a new paragraph and then say, however, in the penny review text, what happened when the people got out? It talks about things like the rumours spreading, it talks about them being exhausted, it talks about the crowd assembled for news and that kind of thing. So if we put something like that, this one doesn't use a quote, but it does clearly refer directly to the text. Okay, next, oops, space, and you're going to list some more like that. All right, so this one so far would only get 2 marks because I've only done 2 references to the text there. But basically, stretch those paragraphs out, do 5 or 6 on each one. Start your timer now, 15 minutes strict on this question, then pause your video and come back for the answers. Okay, assuming you are done, here are the answers coming up. All right, it's broken up into sections because of the 2 bullet points. All right, so let's do the modern article ones first. So in the newspaper article, they were brought up one by one to be rescued. There were scenes of jubilation. They cried, prayed, and hugged their families. People gathered waving flags and honking car horns to celebrate because obviously they're out by now. And the men were sent to hospital for tests. The other things that you can mention in the newspaper article is about the kind of like emotive aspect to it, of people sobbing and hugging each other and chanting kind of like words relating to their country, being quite patriotic. The president saying "Welcome to life" is the one that I modelled. He includes the emotional words of the last man out, okay? And the last one, you can even get a mark for talking about the photograph showing the emotion. In the old-fashioned text, in the penny review one, it talks about hearing the sounds, the tapping of hammers, the voice could be heard and they broke through to the miners. That was on the day as well. A crowd assembled at the mine waiting for news. That's what I modelled. The miners were all found alive but were very exhausted, and they were carried out by the rescuers, put in blankets and taken home. Also in this one, you can mention that the hope of saving them increased during the Sunday because of the rumour spreading. There was lots of activity on the day of it happening. A joyous burst of feeling went through the crowd because they're celebrating, and the miners were exhausted, and it was called an extraordinary rescue here. Okay, so you've got lots of different answers there. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15. There's 19 possible answers there. You just need 10 to get full marks. Okay, so make sure you've given yourself a score out of 10 for that one. And then that does that completes the reading section. Okay, if you wanted to have a look at the writing part, I can show you what the questions are for that. This video doesn't mainly focus on that, but you can set yourself this as an extra challenge and you'll bring it into your teachers to show them. So the first one, and this time it's writing a review of a book, film, or TV series of your choice. You really want to prepare for that in advance of the exam, because that's cropped up a couple of times in the last few years. And then secondly, a really common task is to write a formal letter to a head teacher. And this one says, your head teacher decided there should not be an end of year celebration such as a school prom or party. The head teacher believes it would just be an excuse for students to show off in an expensive way. Write your letter to the head teacher. So either you agree with them or you disagree. Pick one side or the other. don't mix it up. For the review, make sure it's nice and light-hearted and entertaining, maybe a little bit sarcastic and funny. Tell a bit of the story about the film or the book or the TV show or whatever, and then make sure you give him plenty of opinions. It says 300 to 400 words for each one, so most people are going to do that in about a page and a half, maybe 2 pages if you've got slightly bigger writing. If you're less than a page and a half, you're going to get marked down for it not being long enough. You've got to check your spelling, punctuation and grammar, because 8 of the marks are available for that and 12 of the marks are available for your content. Okay, that's it for this video. Hope it was useful. Make sure you check out the other ones. We've got lots of stuff on there helping you with all of your Eduqas revision.